Hey, I hope your day's going okay. Thank you. Anyways, when you're climbing and you find that you just can't progress anymore, climbers will typically turn to some form of a hangboarding exercise, which is a great call. And because tools like the hangboard and hangboarding has been used by climbers for many of years, most climbers more or less kind of know how to do it in a sense. In this video, I'm going to talk about common exercises that climbers do to get better at climbing, but they just don't do the exercises very well. Let me show you how. Before I get too much into it, I have to let you know that you have to separate the climber from the workout and the workout from the climber. What this means is when you are climbing, focus on climbing. Most climbers are pretty good at that. By the way, I'm gonna be using this as my dumbbell example. Obviously, this isn't dumbbell. I have dumbbells and I'm actually kind of strong, but I am done. Now you know what I mean. Example. And when you're working out, focus on working out. Most climbers are not particularly good at that. Here's what I mean. When climbers work out, they think, how can this translate to me climbing harder? But the main particular issue with that is instead of focusing on the exercise at hand and trying to become the best version of you doing this exercise and progressing it, it's always, how can this help me progress on the climbing wall? But here's the thing. Climbing and lifting weights, believe it or not, they're just not the same thing. So you got to treat each one with its own special set of rules. With that being said, as you get stronger at, say, the bicep curl, you go from 10 to 20 to 30, 40 pounds. We are obviously hoping that that is translatable to your climbing. But if it is not, then don't feel like you wasted your time doing bicep curls, because again, climbing and working out, not exactly the same thing. With that being said, the first common exercise done to get better at climbing but is poorly oftenly done is obviously the bicep curl. First off, when doing bicep curls, what is the main purpose? The main purpose is to work the bicep. Bi meaning two, ceps means head. Biceps is composed of two heads of muscles. Anatomy lesson. The function of the bicep is to flex the arm up. And when you are doing the bicep curl, the most important thing probably is weight selection. Too often, climbers, not just climbers, will pick a load that's too heavy and end up using their entire body to move the darn thing. But keep in mind, bicep curls are isolation exercise and not a compound exercise. Isolation exercise meaning that only one muscle is isolated and is put in use. Typically, this looks like only one joint moving. Compound exercise is an exercise where multiple muscle groups are working at the same time. Here we have quads and we have glutes working at the same time. Not to mention hamstrings and all that miscellaneous stuff. And believe it or not, when you do isolation exercise, you are vastly weaker because you're using less muscles. Therefore, the weight that you use should be in accordance with the size of the muscle that you have in order to feel the type of stimulus that you wish to achieve. Meaning, if you're doing bicep curls and you're not feeling it in your biceps, you're doing something wrong. To quickly go over the form of the bicep curl, we want a nice stance where we feel nice and secure in our stability. Next, we want the elbow to be next to our body, and as we lift, the shoulder stays stationary, elbow stays stationary, and we isolate the bicep because hence it is an isolation exercise. We're gonna bring the dumbbell up as high as we can normally, and we're going to try to maintain a straight wrist throughout the entire motion. We particularly don't want to curl the wrist at the top, though a little bit won't be the end of the work. And of course, once fatigue starts to set in, you will notice that you may add a little bit of a swing and a little bit of momentum to it, but a little bit is still okay, so long as you're just not loading that thing up. If done nice and proper, your biceps should feel absolutely pump out their minds. The next exercise will have to be the squat.
Well, yes, climbing is indeed mostly upper body, but a little bit of leg strength won't hurt. Let's build it up properly, shall we?
Now, arguably, the most common mistake I see is, you know how climbers have climbing shoes? Well, believe it or not, squatting has squatting shoes. The general rule of thumb here is we want a shoe with a flat, hard sole, say like a Converse, or Vans, or Jordan 1s. Anything with a flat, hard sole is good. Or feel free to get some of these Olympic weightlifting shoes, which have an elevated heel cup. Now, what does this elevated heel cup do for you? Let me show you. You see, if you have particularly poor ankle mobility, when you squat, you will notice that your ankles rise up, giving you this really unstable foundation of squatting. But let's pretend these are my elevated heel shoes. With the powers of elevated heels, it's much easier to squat and stay upright and nice and stable without having to actually increase your ankle mobility through hard work, which I will show you how to do right now. If you wish to have this type of superb ankle mobility that I have, I recommend you find something sturdy. Drop down. Your upper back may round, but that's okay. The important thing is to keep your heels in contact with the ground. At first it'll be extremely uncomfortable, but the more you do it, the better you will become. I have seen old, I have seen young, I have seen people who never worked out, I have seen people who could hardly ever squat do this. In fact, I used to personal train and I forced all of them to hold it in between their sets, and by the end of 2 or 3 weeks they were looking pretty adequate. But if you do not wish to go through all that shenanigan, literally just take some blocks. It could be little tiny weight plates like those 5-pound plates. Put it beneath the heel of your shoe, step on top of it, and as you squat down, you'll realize it's much easier to stay upright. Now, whether you're doing a goblet squat, a barbell squat, a low bar barbell squat, however type of way you squat, there's always some fundamental rules that always applies. The first one is when squatting, we want your knees to track over your toes. We never want them misaligned too much inwards or too much outward. We just want a nice general up and down motion of the knee directly over the toes. This basically just allows for a very smooth sliding action of your joints as they go over your toes without having to fight with anything in the way of your body, you know? Secondly, you may hear a lot of people say squat with a straight spine, but what does that even mean? Here's what it means. Squatting with a straight spine will have a lot of people trying to arch their lower back like this. In reality, a straight spine just means a normal spine, a neutral spine. Don't bend your spine. That's all it means. It means make sure your spine stays the same throughout the whole time. Don't arch it. Don't round it. A straight spine is a neutral spine. Make sure it stays in one line, just like that. And of course, if you could squat low, go low. Why? The greater the range of motion, the greater the amount of work that's happening upon your body, which means you get more work out of less reps. But of course, there's some nuance to this. And the next exercise is probably the most atrociously done, not just for climbers, but just because this next exercise is a particularly hard exercise to learn and to do, and it is the notorious deadlift. To do this exercise right requires a few hundred things, but I'm just going to give it the crash course of it. First things first, your width upon your feet is comfortable. Whatever you feel strongest in, just do it and don't think too much about it. When you grab the bar, make sure you grab it evenly. Most people don't grab it evenly. Secondly, you're going to start in this position. From here, you're going to engage your muscles, make sure everything's nice and tight. Your arms, you're going to pull it backwards because that engages your muscles. Nice. Your head, you can look down, align your spine, or you could keep it looking up slightly. From here, deep breath in, you're going to brace your core. Bracing means to take a deep breath through your stomach. Flex it like someone's going to hit you. Really important. With everything's nice, taut, and locked and engaged. A little pump. Pull up the slack. And then lift up. And then once the bar comes to around knee level, you're going to engage your glutes and squeeze it straight. The predominantly number one mistake that people make is they tend to over lean backwards, puts a little bit of stress on your back. You don't particularly want that. You just want to stand straight up. Most people, they have the issue where they'll lock out their knees before they lock out their hips, which leaves them looking like this as an over exaggeration. So again, just like with the squats, when you're deadlifting, just stand up, normal, straight. This is a strong position to be in. Get into that position from this. Bah, normal. I just crash coursed that because I didn't feel like explaining how to deadlift for the next 3 hours. Next exercise. Bench press. Just imagine I have a bench, okay? First things first. Whenever you're applying pressure with your hands into the wall, where is the most amount of pressure going through your hand? If you quickly do a quick push-up, you immediately realize that the most amount of pressure going through your hand is actually being delivered right here at the heel of your hand, which means when you're holding the barbell, dumbbell, whatever type of bell you're holding, you want to make sure that your wrists are nice and straight and not bent backwards. If it's bent backwards like this, the predominant amount of weight is going through your knuckles, which means this puts a severe bend into your wrist. Not exactly the best thing for your wrist, right? So then you're going to be looking like that. But what we want to happen is straight wrist where the heel is pushed into the apparatus, nice firm grip. And this way, when you press upwards, most of the weight is happening in your heel. Of course, when the weight does get a tad bit heavier, you will notice your hands start to shift slightly backwards, but so long as the weight sinks into the heel of your hand, you're golden. Now, obviously, we want to have a full range of motion when you bench press. So we want the barbell to come up, hit your chest, and as you push away, your elbows fully lock out at the top. But don't make the mistake of bench pressing with your elbows flare out to the side. Like this isn't particularly good for the shoulders. Instead, what we want to happen is we want to take both your hands and we want to do a double nipple twister. The double nipple twister, right? bah, bah, like that. What that does is that engages the latissimus dorsi of both of your thighs, which makes you nice and taut in the benching position. From here, we're gonna press down, and notice how the elbows are to your side of the body and they're not flare out. This keeps your shoulders nice and safe, puts you in a strong position to press the weight away. And then from there, you just, you press the weight. Yay, there's obviously a lot more nuance, but yay, that's basically it. Okay, now keep in mind though, when you're working out, first and foremost, make sure you're getting better at the workout you are doing. The results of the workout may not change your results on the wall, but the results of the workout should change the results of the workout themselves by you getting better at them, all right? First and foremost, don't be that one guy who's been curling 20 pounds his entire life and says, oh, it's for my climbing training. But no, you gotta separate the two things, right? There's workout, and there's wall climbing training. You know what I'm trying to say here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, partner.